Welcome to this video. Since there are no questions in the comments section of the intro video, I will discuss the function of the form C, which I call Word CBase. You can see the part of the document related to CBase displayed on my screen. You can access the document via the URL that I included in a comment to this video. If you have not yet watched the intro video where I explain, for example, what I mean by the terms form C and word C, as well as the purpose of these videos, I suggest you do so now before watching this video. Why do I call this word CBase? Simply because, since it seems to me to have the most intuitive meanings among all words C, it is the one that I decided to discuss first. Nothing conceptual. More in general, the names that I have chosen for the words C serve only to organize the contents of the document. It would be wrong to attribute any other function to them. The word CBase is a pronoun for the first person plural that plays the role of direct object or indirect object. It expresses both the direct object and the indirect object in the active, reflexive, and reciprocal diathesis, the indirect object in the passive diathesis. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept of diathesis, let's look at a few examples with CBase that cover several Italian diatheses. In all these example sentences, CBase is the indirect object. For this reason, the non-clitic equivalents that I provide below each sentence are introduced by the preposition a. If you like, write in the comment section of this video examples whose non-clitic equivalents are direct objects. I will check them. In the notes to the examples colored in blue, for brevity I always use the term action for what the verb refers to. However, what I say applies to any verb, including those that describe conditions or situations. Example 1. This is an active diathesis, which means that the subject is the doer of the action of the verb and does not undergo it. I nostri figli ci hanno regalato un viaggio per l'anniversario di matrimonio. A non-clitic equivalent is a noi, the subject is I nostri figli, and the undergoer is noi. Example 2. This is a reflexive diathesis. The subject is both the doer and the undergoer of the action of the verb, with the specification that the action performed by a member of the plural subject is undergone only by that member. Ci siamo regalate 2 abiti eleganti per la cerimonia di venerdì. A non-clitic equivalent is noi, ognuna a se stessa. The subject is noi and the undergoer is noi. Example 3. A reciprocal diathesis. Each member of a plural subject is the doer of an action undergone by one or more of the other members of the subject. Oh no, Marta, ci siamo regalate lo stesso libro. A non-clitic equivalent is noi, l'una all'altra. The subject is noi and the undergoer is noi. Example 4. I provide this example only for completeness. This is not a frequently used configuration. It's reflexive plus reciprocal diathesis, therefore a mix of cases 2 and 3. Io e mio marito ci siamo regalati un viaggio per festeggiare la mia promozione. Non-clitic equivalent noi, ognuno a se stesso e all'altro. The subject is noi and the undergoer is noi. Example 5. This is a passive diathesis. The subject is the undergoer but not the doer. Questa zalea ci è stata regalata dai genitori di Marta. A non-clitic equivalent is a noi. The doer is I genitori di Marta and the undergoer is questa zalea. in addition to the replacement of indirect objects with the CHI base, the relationship between the form CHI and non-critic equivalents introduced by the preposition a includes two other contexts. First, the words CHI inanimato and CHI di simulazione tu can replace an indirect object for the third persons of the verb. Second, the words CHI locativo and CHI extra replace, among other elements, other types of non-critic equivalents introduced by the preposition a. It goes without saying that, like the rest of the document, this note is entirely irrelevant to the acquisition of language skills. On the other hand, and unfortunately, if one decides to replicate the proficiency of native speakers through study, these details are necessary and must be managed together in real time. Let's look at three examples. Example 1. To understand which element the form CHI replaces in sentence 1, namely a Milano Rogoredo, one needs to know the possible substitutions of elements introduced by the preposition a. Example 2. To correctly interpret sentence 2, one must know and accept the substandard substitution of third-person animate indirect objects with the CHI inanimato, a linguistic trait of Northern Italy of which you can find an attempt at a humorous use in an old advertisement using the link which I put in the info section of the video. Native speakers who are not familiar with this substandard habit will reject the sentence. Example 3. Thorough knowledge of the list of permissible substitutions with the form CHI of elements introduced by the preposition a is essential to determine that the only apparently possible replacement in sentence 3, namely a suo avviso, is not part of current usage and therefore is unacceptable. To summarize, the competence of a native speaker is far more complex than one might imagine. Yes, that is your competence in your native language. And the rigorous study of linguistics in the context of language acquisition, which can be considered less than optimal even in the simplest contexts, becomes absurd in complex ones. So much so that a simplified and sometimes oversimplified version of it is invariably proposed in courses, lessons, and videos. And do not get me wrong, I am the first to make money trying to teach those complex contexts. The simplification is a smart choice that allows the product to be sold, but leads to an unsatisfactory result, sometimes even to damage. And on more than one occasion I have observed serious damage. The student is left with the task of completing the acquisition of the context through practice, that is, exercises, listening and reading. These last two activities, along with the conversation practice, are the truly useful ones, which in my opinion can be addressed directly, without any intervening grammatical study. Direct and indirect critic objects are overall expressed in the various diatheses by the three series of pronouns presented in Table 1. In all three cases, CHI base is the form for the first person plural. If you want to examine the table, this is the right moment to stop the video. As you see, CHI base is one of three words CHI that are part of the Italian critic pronominal series, and it is the only one which is part of all the series. The other two words CHI shown in Table 1 are CHI inanimato and CHI di simulazione. They are discussed elsewhere in the document. Incidentally, why do I use three series? It is not hard to imagine another partition including a different number of series. However, 3 is the number that makes it possible to achieve two things. 1. Avoid having two or more identical series, as it would happen, for example, if I separated the reflexive and reciprocal diatheses. 2. Having, for any combination of series, person of the verb, and grammatical gender, one critic only, possibly featuring two variants, which is the case in the pink and yellow cells of the table, where we find the other two words C, a fact that suggests a certain complexity of theirs. That's all. At this point in the document you will find the examples that I wrote for you. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments section of the intro video. I will do my best to answer. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to reading your comments and I hope to see you in a future video. Bye!